Hey. I was thinking, and so I wanted to come on here and share my thoughts with you. Happy 4th of July for those who celebrate. It is not one of those days that I do celebrate. I don't reverence this day because we all know when this country became free, Black people weren't. They were still enslaved. And so it's not a day that I reverence. It's a day off. It's a day for me to hang out with family and friends, to fellowship, to eat barbecue, things like that, but not necessarily celebrate the independence of this country. When I think about this country, when I think about the freedoms that are out there, a lot of them are being taken away. We saw this with Roe versus Wade. Women don't have the right to their own bodies anymore, which blows my mind. Like, who can tell someone what they can and can't do with their bodies? And so there are women who are dying. There are women who are being forced to deliver and birth a dead body. Yeah. But I also think about the decisions the Supreme Court made this past week. I didn't talk about it because I was in my feelings. I was very upset with affirmative action because, a lot of times people think about that as, a way to help Black people benefit. But it wasn't just Black people benefiting from affirmative action. It was anyone who was not a white male. So as a woman, you benefited. As a Black person, of course, any other minority, even if you're Asian, you benefited from affirmative action. And so it just really bothered me because really it was put in place to try to level the playing field. We know the playing field still wasn't leveled, but it removed some of the barriers, some of the obstacles that were in the way so that we could achieve success for ourselves. When I think about that, I think about how they just don't want people to win. They don't want people to win. They just want a small select group of people to win. I was listening to Joy Reid talk about her experience at Harvard and how it prepared a lot of people for wealth. They come out of Harvard and do extremely well, make a lot of money, and able to create generational wealth. We saw with the decision, they didn't care that people did not have, that people were legacy. They didn't care that people bought their way into Harvard. The only thing they cared about is that you were Black or whatever, some other race outside of being white, and that they couldn't use that anymore. They didn't strike down the other ones. But when I think about all of that, and like when she was talking about that, they don't want people to be able to create generational wealth, not people who don't look like them or who benefited like they have with their positions. And I'm talking about the justices, the highest court that we have. These are leaders when it comes to judges, and they don't want anybody else to win. And when I say they, I'm not talking about all, because we know some voted against it. I'm talking about the ones who voted to strike it down. When I think about the case, the LGBTQ plus community case, where the lady said that she didn't want to have to design a website or do any web design for someone of same-sex, same-sex couple. But there was no plaintiff. There was no person who was a same-sex couple that asked her to do this. She just said she didn't want to have to, based on the fact that she's a Christian. So there's no plaintiff. Nobody was harmed, but yet they made a decision. You figure this community only have been able to get married for what, 10 years now? And they're like, oh, that's enough. Just like with affirmative action, like the fact that we were brought over 1619, here we are all these years later, they give us 50 to 60, 70 years, and they're like, okay, it's enough. You should have been able to do well, when all this other time, everything else, we know all the systems work against us as Black people, all of them. I was trying to figure out, what do we do? And honestly, the only thing we can do is vote. Now, when I'm saying this to you, I'm saying it assuming that you're a voter, because I will hope that the people that I'm talking to are the ones that will go out and vote all the time, midterms and presidential. When I think about how we got to this place, I'm like, when we allowed 45 in, and I'm not saying me, because I did not vote for him, but I'm saying those who did vote for him and those who voted against Hillary Clinton, decided to use their voice to vote for someone who was not going to win. And then we let 45 in, and then this is where we are, because he was able to appoint all those Supreme Court justices that don't care about all people. They have an agenda. And that agenda, I mean, it's unfortunate because I know they're not supposed to be biased, but it's obvious that they are. And I'm just so disappointed with where this country is because we have failed. This experiment called America has failed. And we should have known when they came over here and stole the land from the natives, right? But everything else that they have done is all about greed, power and greed. That's it. They took away the student loan debt relief. So people can't get their student loan debt erased, right? But yet they're getting all kinds of debt relief. I saw somebody who named all the senators who was able to get some loans, the PPP loans during the pandemic, that they didn't have to pay back, millions of dollars. But people who need the help can't get it. They don't want everybody to win, just a select few. No, that's not why I came on here today. I actually came on here because I was thinking about the 4th. And, I was thinking if someone had sent me What to the Slave is the 4th of July. And that is by Frederick Douglass. I see it every year. I've read it. And I really wanted to come on here and tell you to read it for yourself too, if you have not read it. But you will understand why it's not a day that is celebrated by all Americans. We're not free. We're not free. It is sad because as I see time, the little progress that I've seen in my lifetime, I see it being taken away and it's going to affect generations. I remember my first experience with all of this was when I was in college. I grew up in the inner city, so most of the people that I was around were people, like me, Black people. I had some white friends, but we all were kind of the same types of people. But when I went to college, that's when I noticed things and how the playing field was not leveled. Yes, I went to Case Western Reserve University. We were a small but mighty Black community there during that time and made a lot of changes on the campus. But I also noticed that I could get the same grade as someone else. They would get an A and I would get a C. And because the grades were on a curve, you really just didn't know. You just took the grade as you got it. And it wasn't until I began making friends with people who didn't look like me. And I'm looking at their score and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm doing just as well or better than you. And I'm over here getting a C, trying to get a GPA at a B plus at least, or a B at that point, because, I was a straight A student when I was in high school. I come to college and they're like, wait a minute, all my grades are looking a little differently. And so, that was the first time I experienced that it is not a level playing field, even with affirmative action. We still have to work twice as hard to be considered half as good. And I know many of you have heard that already, but it is the truth. Every Black person I know knows that. Like, you have to work super hard just to be treated equally. And striking down affirmative action is just going to make it that much more difficult. That much more difficult for people to be successful, to be able to succeed in this country that is designed to keep us from succeeding. Yeah, so what I wanted to say to you is to go read What to a Slave is the 4th of July by Frederick Douglass when you get a chance. And enjoy the rest of your day. And I'll be back with you later on this week. Bye-bye.